Hey everyone, and welcome to the Kodakery. I'm Megan.
And I'm Josh.
Kicking off another round of episodes is cinematographer Charlotte Bruus Christensen. Charlotte has worked as DP on Fences, Girl on the Train, and most recently, A Quiet Place. This was our first opportunity to talk with somebody about how to build tension and fear with a camera, and it was super insightful. The camera has a distinct role in the storytelling process, and Charlotte breaks it down for us. So, let's jump into the Kodakery and talk with Charlotte.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Kodakery. Megan and I are back after a break. Megan has welcomed her first child into the world, and this is our first episode in many months, and we're excited to be back with cinematographer Charlotte Bruus Christensen of the new film The Quiet Place, starring John Krasinski and Emily Blunt. The trailer alone scared the bejesus out of both Megan and I. The movie looks fantastic, and we're so excited to talk with Charlotte about it. Thank you for joining us. So, Charlotte, let's jump right into The Quiet Place. How did you become involved, and what kind of drew you to this project?
I first heard about it from, actually it was Emily Blunt's, John Krasinski's wife, Emily, that I worked with on Girl on the Train. She called me up one evening and said, would you mind if my husband gives you a ring, because we're making this movie, or he's making this movie, and she said, I've been talking to him about you while we were shooting Girl on a Train. So actually, the project came through my relationship with Emily. And of course, I said, no, of course. And that was very early stages. So basically, John had just read the first draft of the script that was already written, and he was very excited about it. So he pitched me his idea. And I think that was like a year and a half ago, so not last summer, the summer before. And I just said, well, that sounds really exciting. And he was all about, this is really, it's about fear, it's about living with fear. And as we do these days with all this terrorism and things that you never know, what can happen in big cities. And that was kind of his pitch to me, was like, it's facing that fear, these families living a very fearful life. And so it came through Emily, and I think, obviously she's been talking to John about me, and so friendship, really.
Yeah. You've already touched on it briefly, but for those listening that haven't seen the movie, it's like the name is A Quiet Place. It's sort of post-apocalyptic. There are these creatures lurking, and if you make noise, that's when you are detected, and bad things can happen. And I had read that as John Krasinski was reworking the script, as you said, he was imagining shots in his head. So how did you guys work together to take his vision into to bring it to life? What was your working relationship like?
I mean, it was mostly verbal, from the very beginning. I think when John started writing the script, he would send me like little parts, the opening or the end, or a scene in the middle, and, stuff that he was really excited about, and stuff that he saw visually, and he would talk about it already then. So he kind of fed me with ideas very early on, like verbally. I was in Denmark and he was in the States, so so it's, and then it was from references, really, movies, or, an image from a movie, like a still image or something that would inspire him for a certain scene or the overall feel of the movie. So it's kind of an ongoing conversation in parts, throughout months and months. Not that it was like a heavy conversation, I must look like this. It was just like, we could do this, or look at this movie, or, Jaws was a reference to him, this creating this real world. And within that real world is this creature existing. Same with Let the Right One In was another reference for both of us. Again, it's a genre movie within a real world. That was a vampire movie and set in a kid's world. So we were kind of chatting about references, and he would feed me his ideas early on. And when it came to actually shooting the movie, we'd already kind of spoken about it. So that was more, specifically about, a location or something like that. But the overall look took place from when he started writing.
Mm-hmm.
That was actually going to be one of my next questions was what references did you guys look to? Where did you research? So you mentioned Jaws, absolute classic. Let the Right One In was also a very scary, awesome movie. What else did you look at for inspiration for this? I mean, were there other horror films? Did you look outside the genre?
We looked at different horror films. Not all of them for look, really for the look. But John asked me to look at different movies like Signs or a bunch of them, more to learn about the scare, more to learn about the genre movie. I haven't shot a horror movie before, so it's interesting to watch different kind of movies, even though they're not necessarily a visual reference, just to understand, the storytelling elements. So we did watch horror movies, but for the look of the movie, Jaws was a reference, Let the Right One In was a reference, also There Will Be Blood.
Nice.
There was a lot of nature, just how they use the environment, the world, the farm, the light. We have a lot of dusk scenes and night scenes, and there was something so... The simplicity of that movie, when it's night. It's not overlit with too much moonlight, and they have some beautiful dusk scenes where it's dusk. You let it be what it should be, and also No Country for Old Men. There's also some really beautifully lit night scenes that is just very subtle, and also silhouette scenes. We had a lot of moments where you would like to work with these silhouettes. So they were the kind of the references for the look of the movie.
Right.
Those four.
And like you said, you hadn't shot a horror film before. Now that you have, are there a lot of differences in working in this genre cinematographically?
Yes and no. I mean, in this case, because we wanted the movie, and John wanted the movie to take place in the real world, where I come from, in the more naturalistic and documentary kind of feel, was a good place to be. But then in the moments of the scare, yes, it is different, because you really got to, you don't think so much about the composition maybe. It's not about the framing so much, it's about the cut. And making that shot work for the cut, knowing exactly when you cut out of it, just as he grabs her or just as you see the creature. So these kind of businesses, the shot work up to this moment, and that is the cut. But I mean, John seemed to have a good idea of when those horror moments, how they were going to work, and also producer Andrew Form was on set. He's done a lot of horror movies too, so they were kind of just joking about, this is how we do horror movies. You put the camera low and put in a 14 mil, and so there was good advice around. But as a cinematographer, you feel your way, and you also shoot the scene still, working your way towards that scare.
Yeah.
But it was fascinating.
When did film come into the discussion? When did you guys decide to shoot film, and why was it the right medium for this?
We spoke about film from the very beginning, John and I. We always knew it was going to be a challenge to persuade the studio to shoot film. But I think, every one of the references that we looked at, Jaws, Let the Right One In, There Will Be Blood, and they were all shot on 35 mil. And he was talking about, we were talking about our look as we wanted like a confident look, if that makes sense, like calm, simplicity, not trying to be too much of a genre movie. Let it just be that in what's happening, not necessarily overdo the lighting or overdo the movements of the camera. So we wanted that kind of confident, slow and simple kind of camera work. And I think film, the way you like to film, the way you work with film, you are on set, you look towards the scene, you don't disappear into a video village and try things out. And there's a more simple approach to the way you light and you make your scene with the cast and the actors and actresses. So there's just it kind of suited that overall feel. The simplicity was, it's analog. You look, you light, you use your light meter and you shoot. And I think that for us, that was there was a nice feel to that. And then also, obviously, the very soft cinematic look where we could, really use the anamorphic lenses to, with the emulsion. It just gives a very filmic look, and I think that was crucial to us. But also, we knew, obviously, we're making a movie with hardly no dialogue. There's only a few pages of dialogue where they're whispering in a safe room or in one other location. So the texture of the movie was somehow important, and not that you can't get. I love the digital media, and that is right for some projects, and it's a beautiful image too. We just felt that kind of softness and texture and the warmth and kind of added to this. It's not a silent movie, but a movie without dialogue.
It's a quiet movie.
Right.
A lot of it. It's a quiet movie. But it's not silent. It's not a silent movie. It's right. There's a beautiful sound design. So, yeah.
Did you find there were challenges because there is so little dialogue in terms of when you're telling a story? Like, it's not like you could have somebody be like, "Look over there." I mean, you really have to use the storytelling of the camera to help the audience understand what's going on. Were there new challenges there?
There was, because the first challenge, and we were aware of it, and I think during the first couple of days or first week, you kind of get a better idea, you work your way into how you're going to solve it. But this thing of sign language, we knew that subtitles were going to be a thing, but you want to see the hand. So it's suddenly we wanted to make a close-up, and we're like, well, but we can't see the hand. That's the problem. Because you want it to,
right.
It's not just, you want to be close to the face, but it's kind of weird when you know they're moving your hand. It's not that people have to read their hands, but it was just odd to be close in a normal close-up, knowing that they were using their hands so much.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that.
So there was an off size where you see hands coming in and out of shot, but you don't see them fully. So we were like, oh, we got to stay out here, and then we'll make that close-up for maybe towards the end of the scene, or it does make sense for the editor and John to go in and you've seen the hand. So close-ups were we only really shot them for the right moment. But so close-ups were very, very important to the movie. Obviously, close-ups of faces at the right time, but also close-up of objects or being close to something, because we knew that, well, for the sound designer to put a sound on something that people are very careful, like placing anything on a table or touching anything. If you're far away in a long lens, there would be no sound. But if you're up close, everything has a sound. Even trying not to make a sound, there is a sound just moving.
Right.
So this thing of being close to objects and to people were more about thinking about the sound design and allowing them to put sound in there. So, and then when you cut away in a long lens, there will be no sound. So suddenly you have these sound cuts that we would create with the distance of the lens and between the lens and the object, or the lens and the person. So I think that was really what we had to think about, is that we got to get wide lenses close so that the audience feel I'm nearby, and therefore I would hear a sound, even though they're being silent. So that was really interesting.
Sounds complicated.
To think about.
Sounds complicated to imagine, in the moment how it would all come together.
Yes, but then that's what happens the first 2 or 3 days. You suddenly get this is our style, this is what we're looking for, and then it's not so complicated.
Yeah. And it's interesting that you referenced Jaws, because from what I understand, these creatures, you don't necessarily see them until later on. So you know that they're there, but you can't really see them. And I understand that in Jaws, because they didn't want you to see this mechanical shark, they built their suspense by just sort of knowing it was there. You see a fin, and it's
the music, the sound design of that film.
Exactly. It's
the music,
similar. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. Who doesn't
and people's
know
reaction. You just you see that fin, and then you see the water moving a little bit, but it's people creating it, and the music and everything else that creates that fear.
Yeah.
And it's very, when John Krasinski first pitched the movie, that fear that it's what we have these days, that terrorism or people driving into people, you don't see it. It's fear is in the air, or just in everyday life. Do you want to send your kids to a concert in Chicago? I mean, it's just
right.
but obviously nothing's going to happen. Nothing's going to happen. But still, there is
it's there.
You have kids, and it's there. But and I think that is, there is a theme there in terms of this movie. That's kind of fearful. Just be silent and try to live within.
And did you try to infuse that fear into like into the whole film, right? So how do you infuse that foreboding into a scene where the kids are, playing Monopoly, people are having dinner, stuff like that? Like was there an approach to that, or did you try to let those scenes just be what they were and only ratchet the tension up like at those horror moments?
Yeah, I'd say the performances create that more, just those looks, because also these two parents are living, with there's a deaf girl in the family. Mm-hmm. So she doesn't know necessarily, I mean, she's taught herself, but she can't hear the sound she's making. Right. So sometimes maybe she wouldn't hear what kind of sound that makes. So, they would have to have that eye on her. So just that kind of head turn, slightly, looking after her in a different way, and her not wanting that extra attention. She can look after herself. Mm-hmm. And this is the whole tension between the characters, and that's very interesting too. But I think this fear in terms of what we, with the camera and trying to support that, John and I had a slightly different approach. I feel it's very fearful to be silent, not silent, but still, like to not move. And to John, he was more like that little move just makes it uneasy. So that's, in the end, that's what we did. We just move a little bit, but you're not really going anywhere. You're not really, it just, and I agree with him seeing it now, that little kind of, just slightly moving somewhere, it just makes it uneasy in a way. And then sometimes we did use the stillness that I sometimes really love if you've been busy with the camera, if it's been handheld or you've been running with the camera and you cut then to a still image. Right. Then it's kind of, oh my God, something's going to happen. Mm-hmm. So I think we kind of then worked with the contrast of where you come from. So what are people used to right now? Well, he's running, so the camera's running. And if you then go still, that's fearful. Mm-hmm. So I think we kind of, the fear was in the just the contrast of what we were doing in that scene. So, it was different in every scene.
Yeah, there's a lot of tools that you can use to build that tension.
There is.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Oh, yeah. But that's why this movie was a amazing challenge, because it was very minimalistic in a way. Everything, if you move the camera a little bit, or you cut from a running shot to still, these kind of very simple, minimalistic tools were very powerful. And then on top of that, when the creature does come in, it's because it's been so minimalistic, it's so overwhelming, and it looks brilliant. It looks very intelligent, this creature. So it becomes even bigger almost, because things have been so simple, and it's like fears in the air or in sound. So it's an amazing build.
I think some of the best genre movies are movies that don't try to play to the tropes of the genre. They just try to be a film. And like Jaws as an example, I mean, part of the reason I think that movie is so timeless is it's not necessarily, at the time, like it was a horror movie, but we've almost made it more of a genre film. They didn't set out to make one. And I get that same feeling from this. Like, you set out to make a great film that happens to have a creature in it. And I'm really excited to see how people respond to it.
I think that's exactly how John pitched the movie to me, or what he wanted with the movie, was that exactly what you just said. Like, I want to make a great movie, and it happens to be that there's a creature in it, and it happens to be scary at the end, hopefully. Yeah. But it wasn't like, we've set everything in to just make this scare. It was, I feel that for him, it was about the good movie and the good story, and being, a good storyteller.
And he was...
That was exciting.
So he was the director and he was also an actor in the film. Same with when you worked on Fences. Denzel Washington was the director and he was in the film. What is that like as a cinematographer?
I love it. It's different. 'Cause, when I first worked with Denzel, and then after that I had a couple of weeks where I worked with Ben Affleck, and he was also directing and then in the movie. And then with John, so now I kind of had three cases, and it's different with each person, with each director. Because I thought, once you've done that, it's kind of what you do. But each director wanted it differently. With Denzel, it was a lot of prep, very precise prep, and a lot of precise rehearsals with the cast. And then he would throw it all up in the air, but at least a lot of rehearsals. And whereas with John, it was slightly more spontaneous. So I think he's an actor, and as is Denzel, but he reacts to what he feels at that moment. So it was more like, okay, we prepped this, but still, I had to be very kind of aware in the moment, and it causes that sometimes you step one step to the right, and he wanted to be the left, and that's what when you're busy like that, you have to find it as you go along. With someone like John brings a lot of energy. He has a crazy amount of energy. He just keeps going, and a new idea can come up, and that takes a lot to kind of to constantly be aware of what has changed, and so you got to observe that kind of director / actor. You got to constantly observe them, and then sometimes you got to try things out, and because they're gone and they come back, and whether it's right or it's wrong, then you got to be quick to adjust. But I don't mind that. I love that sometimes I have to go ahead and do stuff, and then in the end, you go with it or you change it to something else. That there's more of a risk because you're not together all the time. But I love it.
Right, and you've worked with Emily Blunt on a couple of films now. What's it like working with her?
I adore Emily. We had a really amazing experience on Girl on the Train. And I think somehow we got really close also on that. We had, on that movie, it was, she was just playing an alcoholic girl, and there was a lot of handheld, so we physically got really close and had to kind of almost get this dance going, where it wasn't too planned either. She had to do something, and I had to kind of just feel it and follow her. So I think we kind of got a really close relationship in terms of just, storytelling without too many words. We didn't communicate. Of course, we communicated, but it wasn't all about the words. It was just, performance and me capturing that somehow. So on this one, it was different because, it was a different part, first of all, and also I think both of us had to be, very aware of John and his energy and where he needed to take this movie. But I've enjoyed working with her. I mean, she's just a fabulous actress, and she, I'm a big fan.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of her.
I am as well, and it's embarrassing how excited I am about Mary Poppins Returns. It's going to be awesome. So,
I'm
embarrassed.
So as a kind of as a cinematographer, what is your favorite part of shooting a film? When you come on set every day, what is the thing you're most excited about?
I love the morning. I love coming in and the first just coming in and seeing the whole team and everything is is going up, whatever you plan to do. And that is an amazing. I always come on set in the morning and I go really? Can I actually enter this and go in and say something? And I always get excited about just the physics of the staff and the people, and that I'm amazed that people. These people know what to do. There's some mechanic that I love about this. You set up. It's so simple. You want a shot, and then all this happens. Of course, we orchestrate as head of departments, but it's amazing what the team can do for you. There is this team spirit and the play between. For example, to have a really great AC next to you, if I operate the camera and you have someone who constantly they have to read me like I have to read John. With his focus. And on this movie, you had Stanley Fernandez, who just, they don't, people who just knows what's going on without asking with words. It's just like they've observed something and they know exactly, well, actually, don't you think we should try this? Or they add to it. I think that collaboration is something I really, really, really love as a cinematographer. And everyone is there to support the art, which is amazing. But also, I love lighting. I love the whole prepping light. In the pre-production, just looking at references and imagining what that could be at that specific location we're at. So the prep period, I could go on. There's so many things I love about this. Obviously, the relationships with directors and with cast and stuff. I love every part of it. Not every part.
Like
there is parts that's not so fun.
Right. So, and would you ever step into the director's chair? Is that something that you see in the future that you'd like to try?
It's not at the moment. I mean, there's been stories around, and I don't want to burn any bridges or anything like that. But I also want to say that at the moment, I'm so excited about what's happening, in the DP, in the DP chair, and I've been very lucky to be part of very different movies. I started out in a Danish movie called The Hunt and made a couple of movies here. It was a very kind of documentary film. Far from the Madding Crowd was, period piece, and then, Fences, which is, coming from theater, and then this. So I think I'm so excited about being part of and collaborating on somebody else's vision. But, DP often has a vision, and maybe if that right story comes across and somebody says, like, this is, read this, and I fall in love with the story, I think that it's more as a filmmaker than it is, as a director. I don't have any aim to go and be a director right now. So it's a filmmaker kind of position, and right now it's very fulfilled as a DP.
Good.
I feel.
Can you talk a little bit about what it's been like as a woman? Has that caused any extra complications, or has it made it harder to get further? Or could you just talk a little bit about being a woman in the film industry?
I have to say it's been the very early and then the last part, because the working my way up, I never thought about it really. But when I was 16, 17, and I started sharing with people that are, telling stories with images, and, this CP, my dad is a farmer and my mom is a hairdresser and has no relation to the film industry. So it was a big, what is that film industry and how do you get in there?
Right.
So that was a big step. But people at that point were saying, like, it's not going to happen. There is no women. And so the very early kind of introduction was very negative. It was like, just don't do that. And I got a little stuff and I was like, well, who says that? So I think, but once I got going and got into the film school, I don't recall any kind of. I was very on the job and on the story, and I think it's probably I was a little blinded too, which maybe was a good thing because I didn't think about it or see anything or see what people were thinking or saying or whatever. So I didn't notice anything. Mm-hmm. I think the last year or two, it's been more because it's been so much in the industry. Right. That suddenly it's been, and then I've come to a point where, I'm doing bigger movies and studio movies, and, you deal with producers and interviews and stuff where it's kind of presented more to me. And it's also made you more aware on set. And that is good for many reasons, because people who does have an issue out there or, that needs to be seen. I can't be that blinded and just only look at my stories. So I think I've been more aware of it simply because the industry has been so, it's been the last couple of years has been pretty, things are happening right now. And I think we can all kind of feel that. There started being a lot of attention when I started introducing to people, and then at the end here, it's been I don't know, it's just been more present for me. But I've never had like a serious issue in terms of my personal work. There can be incidents, but not like an issue that I feel like it's been in the way in any way.
What's your next project? Have you selected what's coming up next? Can you give a little preview to our audience?
I haven't yet, and that is rather strange because in the last the movies I've done in the States since Girl on the Train has been like one after the other, or it's always like before finishing one, I knew what the next one was going to be. But at the moment, I'm in Denmark and with my 3 little girls and my 5 horses, and kind of reading scripts and having a little bit of a break, which is, I have to say, that's really good too.
Yeah,
my oldest daughter, Vera, she's starting school this summer, so there's also a little bit of a thing of like, where do we settle to let her start school and stuff. So I think we're kind of being. I'm very excited about the next project, but I don't know what it is yet. But I know it's going to be good.
So yes. It's been wonderful to talk with you. One final question I have is when you're trying to reach an audience, like I think what you're trying to do in The Quiet Place, thinking about some of the other films you've made, how do you deliver emotion to an audience? Like, what's the most important storytelling rule that you use to connect with the audience when you're in behind the camera?
That's a good question, because it's probably the thing that means the most to me is that the work that I contribute with obviously is serving the director's vision, but I also have to obviously has a personal desire that the words in the script and the director's vision that I'm responsible to give that emotion to give that to the audience, that they feel moved by what what you see. For me, there is a very I think the words in the script, and when or the words that a director has delivered to me, I'm very literal with that. So if something is like a scene is about there's some jealousy, just to take a theme that is. With lighting and with the camera move, I constantly work towards a word or a theme or something that the director has given me to give that to the audience, because that's where I can really, because that's a word that doesn't come out, in the dialogue or in the set design. That's something that I can add. So I think these words, whether it's from the script or it's from a conversation with the director, I get very. That's what I'm aiming for, with the light and with the movement, and that will kind of determine or guide me to whether this track should be going fast or slow, or whether you zoom at the same time because you want to, So I think it's a precision that when you, and that's the thing, when you operate yourself, you really can feel that, when a character moves her head or his head, and I can move at the same time. It's these little details. To me, that's very, very important to catch those moments and to try and convey emotion, to move an audience. But that's another amazing thing with cinematography. It's such a powerful tool, I think. But I'm not saying I get it right all the time, but it's a goal.
Yeah,
it's a goal. Yeah, I hope that makes sense.
It does.
Yeah,
it definitely
complicated,
does.
But
it does.
Good.
And I think you're getting it right. At least all the times I've seen your films. So
that's a huge compliment. Thank you very much.
So for our audience out there, The Quiet Place comes out nationwide April 6th. Go see it. Charlotte, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, and yes, go see it. It's a good movie.
Great.
All right.
It is a great satisfaction to be able to speak to you through the medium of this wonderful invention.